Alien scholars mocked humanity's primitive tactics, then saw them work too well, Doctor. Vexthera's crystalline appendages clicked dismissively against her data tablet as she reviewed the human military archives. Around the observation deck of the Galactic War College, her fellow scholars from a dozen different species murmured in agreement with her assessment. "Absolutely barbaric," she declared, her translator rendering her disgust in perfect standard galactic. "Look at this. They call it psychological warfare. They actually try to frighten their enemies rather than simply defeating them efficiently." Professor Zeph, a tall Altarian with silver skin that rippled when he was amused, gestured toward the holographic display showing human battle footage. "Notice how they waste energy on what they call battle cries. Our combat algorithms indicate this serves no tactical purpose whatsoever." The assembled academics chuckled, some literally, others expressing mirth through bioluminescent patterns or harmonic frequencies. They were the galaxy's finest military theorists, and humanity had just been admitted to the Galactic Federation after their recent victory over the Mechanical Siege Collective. The war colleges across known space were eager to study these newcomers, and their supposedly effective but crude methods. And this concept of morale, added Dr. Kethmore, her tentacles writhing with academic excitement. "They actually believe that emotional states affect combat effectiveness. How quaint." Admiral Thorne, the lone human observer in the room, sat quietly in the corner. The grizzled veteran had been assigned as a military liaison, but so far he'd said nothing during the 3-day symposium analyzing human tactics. His weathered face remained impassive as the alien scholars dissected his species' approach to warfare. "Perhaps most puzzling," Dr. Vexthera continued, "is their insistence on these ritualistic behaviors before battle. They sing songs, perform ceremonial preparations, and engage in what they call pumping up. Our studies show this actually increases metabolic waste and reduces operational efficiency." "Primitive emotional regulation," Professor Zeph agreed. "We evolved past such inefficiencies millennia ago. Pure logic and calculated strategy are demonstrably superior." The symposium was intended to be educational, but it had devolved into what humans might call a roast. Each species represented here had developed highly refined, mathematically optimized approaches to conflict. The crystalline hegemony used perfectly coordinated swarm tactics. The Altarian Republic employed predictive battle computers that calculated optimal outcomes. The tentacled Confederation had bred warrior castes with enhanced neural networks for instant tactical analysis. Admiral Thorne finally stood up. "Mind if I show you something?" The room fell silent. Dr. Vexthera's chromatic skin shifted to a pale blue. Surprise. "Of course, Admiral. We would welcome your perspective." Thorne walked to the central display and pulled up a new file. "This is footage from the Battle of Kepler 442b. The Siege Collective had overrun 3 Federation colonies and was closing in on the core worlds. Every military computer said the planet was indefensible. The hologram showed a desolate world under siege. Mechanical warriors, the Collective's perfect emotionless killing machines, advanced in flawless formations across barren landscapes. Their efficiency was undeniable. Your species' forces had already been calculated and repelled, Professor Zeph noted. The battle computers gave them a 0.03% chance of success. That's right, Thorne said. So we ignored the computers. He advanced. The footage. Suddenly, human soldiers appeared from concealed positions, but they weren't following any recognizable tactical doctrine. They screamed as they charged, actually screamed. Some had painted their faces. Others carried weapons that were clearly suboptimal for the situation, but held personal significance. The Collective had studied every major military doctrine in the galaxy, Thorne explained. They could predict and counter any logical strategy, but they'd never encountered an enemy that fought with pure, stubborn human rage. The aliens watched, in growing fascination as the human forces did everything wrong by conventional standards. They split their attention between tactical objectives and protecting civilians. They made decisions based on intuition rather than data. Individual soldiers regularly disobeyed orders to pursue personal vendettas against the machines, and somehow, impossibly, they were winning. This soldier here, Thorne pointed to a woman wielding a plasma rifle like a club, lost her daughter to the collective. The battle computer said she should maintain distance and use suppressing fire. Instead, she charged directly into their lines, screaming her daughter's name. The academics watched as the woman's seemingly suicidal charge caused an entire collective formation to falter. The machines programmed to respond to logical threats had no protocols for dealing with an enemy who fought with pure emotional fury, and this unit here abandoned their strategic position to rescue civilians. Thorne continued. By every tactical analysis, it was the wrong choice, but it forced the collective to split their focus. Their perfect efficiency algorithms couldn't handle protecting against an enemy that cared more about saving lives than winning battles. Dr. Vexathera's skin had shifted to deep purple, deep thought mixed with unease. But surely this was just luck? Watch the pattern, Thorne said, advancing through hours of footage. Every human mistake created chaos that the collective couldn't compute. Their emotional responses, their illogical attachments, their refusal to accept calculated defeat, it all combined into something that couldn't be quantified or countered. The room was silent now, except for the soft humming of life support systems. The greatest military minds in the galaxy were witnessing something their sophisticated understanding couldn't explain. The collective spent so much time perfecting their ability to counter logical opponents. Thorne said quietly. They never learned to fight against hope. Professor Zeph's silver skin had gone completely still. Your primitive tactics, they weren't primitive at all, were they? Admiral Thorne smiled, a gesture that suddenly seemed less quaint and more terrifying to the assembled scholars. Every species in this room evolved past their emotions because emotions seemed inefficient. But you also evolved past the thing that makes you fight harder when everything seems lost. You optimized yourselves right out of the ability to do the impossible. Dr. Vexathera set down her tablet with trembling appendages. We've been studying your tactics as curiosities. We should have been studying them as weapons. Maybe, Thorne said, heading toward the door. But I'd recommend being careful about that. Because the thing about human emotions? They're not just effective against machines. The door slid shut behind him, leaving the galaxy's finest military theorists to contemplate a troubling new equation. What happened when perfectly logical warfare met an enemy that refused to be logical? Outside in the corridor, Admiral Thorne allowed himself a small smile. Let them think they understood humanity now. The truth was, even humans didn't fully understand what made them fight the way they did. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying tactical advantage of all.